Teddy Roosevelt is coming back in the election of 1912. He's going to try to run again for the presidency. This time, however, he's going to actually run against an incumbent Republican president, i.e., an incumbent of his own party. So you can imagine that this could be a political disaster for the Republicans. And a lot of Republicans are going to tell Roosevelt, don't do it. You're going to divide the party and you're going to bring the Democrats in, right? But some Republicans are going to say, no, we need him right now. We cannot wait. So he's pressured to run. Roosevelt's also irritated at what Taft had done. So he runs for the Republican nomination. This is a nasty fight for it. There is nothing worse than the falling out of friends. And now, if this were a primary system where all the Republican voters could have voted for who they wanted, Roosevelt would have won hands down. But at the time, only 13 states had a primary system. The other states used conventions. And of the 13 states where voters voted, Roosevelt won 238 delegates versus Taft's 78. But in those states that have conventions, i.e. run by state party machinery, well, there's going to be a great chance that Taft is going to win. Because after all, as the Republican president of the United States, he's in charge of the Republican Party. He controls the machinery of the whole thing. So when the Republican convention gets together, it comes down to 252 disputed votes. This occurred when two sets of delegates show up and say they're the official delegates. The convention itself decides which votes are chosen, specifically the convention chairman, who as you can guess, was controlled by Taft machinery. Taft won the nomination. And it may not be fair, but that's what happened. Taft used the fact that his group of people controlled the machinery to ensure his election and nomination. Roosevelt would have done exactly the same thing had he been in Taft's position. Roosevelt says that he is robbed, and he walks out of the convention. He takes his supporters, and they hold their own convention and start their own party, the Progressive Party. Sometimes it's called the Bull Moose Party, because somebody asked Roosevelt, are you fit enough to be president once more? His response, I am as fit as a bull moose. So he's going to try and run a third party candidate. It called for the federal regulation of interstate business. It called for a nationwide primary for the presidential candidates. We still don't have that today. We use conventions. In the area of social justice legislation, the progressive platform called for the prohibition of child labor, minimum wage for women, social insurance. You know it as Social Security. They were calling for this in 1912, Social Security reform that did not pass until 1935. They were ahead of the time. They were also the first party to call for women's suffrage, women's right to vote. The Democrats are going to find a new leader in 1912 in the form of Woodrow Wilson. Wilson had a PhD from Johns Hopkins University, was a former history professor and president of Princeton University. He's also a Southerner. His one political position that he ever attained was the governorship of New Jersey, but he's actually born in Georgia. He's very high-minded and very idealistic, a progressive Democrat. He got the Democratic nomination and came up with his own catchphrase, the New Freedom. And in it, he said there are the three goals within the New Freedom: lowering the tariff, create a better banking system, strengthening antitrust laws. He said that if you do these three things, you could break the control of the economy by big business and would restore freedom in America, freedom in the American economy. Now, did you see any social justice mentioned there? No, you didn't. Now, this campaign had four different candidates. Taft is Republican, the most conservative party available. You also had Eugene Debs as the socialist candidate, pushing very radical change. Then you have the Teddy Roosevelt and his progressives, and finally you have Wilson and the Democrats. The real race here is actually between TR and Wilson. The difference between the two men was due to the country getting so big and complex. You needed the government to regulate these big businesses. You also had the assumption that there was many who couldn't protect themselves in the country, and they needed government to protect them. Child labor laws, for example. Regulate the powerful and protect the weak. The difference between them is how you approach it. Wilson's approach was very appealing because it made people feel like they were going back to a previous time. When you look at the three parts to his New Freedom, it looks like they're going back to a better day. Wilson wins the election. mainly because of the fact that the Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, they split the Republican votes. When you add up all the votes, more than 75% of them went to some sort of reform candidate, Wilson, TR, or Taft. If TR had been on a unified Republican ticket, he surely would have won the election of 1912.